Okay, good
Morning, Rabbi.
Where's Menachem Mendel? Hi, Shalom Bed. Good morning. What are you supposed to say today, huh? You should know, Gimel Tammuz, you don't say Tachnan. I know this gets people crazy. I once told someone not to say Tachnan Gimel Tammuz, and he started screaming at me. I'll tell you, Bekitzer, I'm not going to spend a lot of time because I have to finish by 9 o'clock, and I'm going to finish by 9 o'clock. I'm sorry. Because Gimel Tammuz is a Schalt of the Geula. Gimel Tammuz, the Frierdiker Rebbe, was sent out of Shparlerka prison, and he went what the Rebbe called himself Le'ir Miklot Le'Kastrama. And then, of course, 11 days later, Yud Tammuz, he was freed. Gimel Tammuz. Kiyadua Hasipur. So, the Rebbe spoke about Gimel Tammuz a lot. The Rebbe spoke about Gimel Tammuz a lot. And what the Rebbe said about Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe said, that's a schalt of the Geula. The fact that he went out of jail was the Hakdama to the Geula Shleima of Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz. But the Rebbe also said that it's possible to say that by Chassidim, Gimel Tammuz is a bigger Yom Tov than Yud Beis Tammuz. Why? Because Yud Beis Tammuz, the Rebbe was freed from prison. He was able to continue doing his holy work. But Gimel Tammuz, his life went on a sakana gashmis. And the Rebbe said there's a difference how Chassidim look at the Rebbe and how the Rebbe looks at the Rebbe. The Rebbe looks at the Rebbe, that his whole lineage is Afatas Hayadis. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe said about himself. When the Frierdiker Rebbe was in Kastrama, he said to Rebbe L'chaim, I think, he looked at his hands, and he said, as ich kann nicht schreiben wegen Tashpar, was darf ich haben die Hand? Imagine, the Frierdiker Rebbe said, as ich kann nicht schreiben wegen Tashpar, was darf ich haben die Hand? Tashpar, the nicht geschmissen. By the Rebbe, Gimel Tammuz was nothing, but the Frierdiker Rebbe. Because until he's able to do his work in Afatas Hayadis, Afatas Hayadis, he's still a prisoner. But by Chassidim Gimel Tammuz, his life pushed without a sakana. So these are two verta from the Rebbe. Number one, that it's a schalt of the Geula. And number two, that it's possible to say that by Chassidim, Gimel Tammuz is even a bigger Yom Tov than Yud Beis Tammuz. So when you get to Tachnun, there's 2 days that the Rebbe said Toli Behergish. And one of them is Chayel. Chayel, the Rebbe said, but again, Amir Stachim is Toli Behergish. It's the Rebbe said that the Rebbe Rashab told the Frierdiker Rebbe, Good Yom Tov uns. Heint is the Yemul Ledes Nishnei Amir Sakdelim. And the Rebbe once repeated this. Good Yom Tov uns. Now the Shaila is, what's meant Good Yom Tov uns? Good Yom Tov uns means Chassidim, or Good Yom Tov uns means the Rabbeim. That's how I understand the suffix. Good Yom Tov uns. If Good Yom Tov uns, Zayin Oder is a Yom Tov that we don't keep. Only the Rabbeim kept Zayin. It doesn't say for Amin Hagim. The Zayin Oder is a day that the Rabbeim celebrated. They didn't say Tachnun. But only once they became Rebbe, not before. So when the Rebbe Rashab said to the Frierdiker Rebbe, Good Yom Tov uns, does that exclude that this is a Yom Tov for Chassidim, or does it include this Yom Tov for Chassidim? The Rebbe, I saw the Erste Jahren in Teres Menachem, the Rebbe says, the Rebbe de Shverat Amol Gezok Chayel, Good Yom Tov uns. That's the Lashon that the Rebbe quoted, Good Yom Tov uns. That means Yom Tov for us. Us means who? All of Anash, or does it mean the Rabbeim themselves? So anyway, that's how I understand the suffix of Chayel. When you get to Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe also said it's Toli Behergish. It's a schalt of the Geula. But again, everybody has their minhag, and I'm not Chas V'Shalom gonna tell anybody they're right or they're wrong, but I don't say Tachan Gimel Tammuz. Not me, he says Mitzad the Frierdiker Rebbe, it's Gimel Tammuz.
Why? But he said it's Toli Behergish?
The Rebbe said it's Toli Behergish. You'd base it Gimel Tammuz, you for sure don't say Tachan. You just Kislev and Chav Kislev, you sure don't say Tachan. Yud Kislev, you sure don't say Tachan. And Chamisha Bet Tevis, if you say Tachnen, you're not even right that you should be insulted. Hey Tevis, for sure you don't say Tachnen. But Gimel Tammuz is Toli Behergish. It has Chalta the Geolesis. The Frierdiker Rebbe's life was no longer in danger, and then 10 days later, he was able to come home. Chazalei Sunny.
Did the Rebbe did say Tachnen?
I don't remember. Ich denke nicht. The Rebbe sich nicht gemischt in Gabos. The Rebbe didn't mix in. There's a lot of things that happened in 770 that Rebbe said to do faket, and Persian people didn't listen. And people bring rayas from this that the Rebbe didn't mean it. I mean, the example that makes me crazy, I always tell this to you, is the Rebbe wanted they should say all the Kadeshim. If there's anybody who doesn't have parents and there's no chiyuv, all the Kaddish Yosams, including Kaddish Rabbanan, should be said. And so many people refuse to do it. I can't understand it. So and the raya is that the Rebbe was many times in 770 and they didn't say all the Kadeshim and the Rebbe didn't say anything. And there's kama things like that. But okay, this is not for right this morning. The avoid of right now, even though you're before davening and I'm before davening, is the chaza, the second 4 parakim of the Maimer, V'yata Tetzav. So I'll take out the sefer. Yesterday's 4 parakim finished with a kasha. First of all, yesterday's class started with V'yata Tetzav, that Moshe Rabbeinu was Mekasher and Mechaber Es Yisrael Amei Sof, which he then translates as Zonu Mefanes Es Yisrael Binyan HaEmunah. Those are the 2 inyonim. Then the Rebbe followed that up with the idea of Ispashtusa de Moshe B'chol Dora V'Dora, that there's a Hispashtus of Moshe Rabbeinu in every single generation. Then that was followed up by Kosis Lamoed. After the Rebbe said that Moshe Rabbeinu is Mekasher Mechaber Es Yisrael Amei Sof Zonu Mefanes Es Yisrael Binyan HaEmunah, then he said that this is true in every dor, is Pashtusa de Moshe B'chol Dora V'Dora, and then he said Kosis Lamoed. And the Rebbe sees this as a stira, because Kosis Lamoed is not B'chol Dora V'Dora. Kosis Lamoed is only in certain days. So the Rebbe gave a teretz and shlugged it up. The teretz that the Rebbe gave was that Taka in every generation there's Moshe Rabbeinu, but in certain generations there's Kosis Lamoed, but not in all days. And the Rebbe said that can't be pshat. It can't be pshat. Because if you look at the Signin and the Seder HaYonim and the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimah, you'll see that when he follows up this Pashtusa de Moshe B'chol Dora V'Dora with the idea of Kosis Lamoed, he's saying that Kosis Lamoed is B'chol Dora V'Dora. You can't say that Kosis Lamoed only in certain days. There has to be Kosis Lamoed B'chol Dora V'Dora. And the Rebbe's kash is Moshe Rabbeinu himself wasn't Kosis Lamoed. The first model, the V'yata Tetzava, wasn't Kosis Lamoed. So back to question 1. In other words, the question that the Rebbe asked in the end of Perek Gimel, he asked again in question in the beginning of Perek Dalet. The end of Perek Dalet. The kasha is this Pashtus of the Moshe B'chol Dora V'Dora, or is it only Kosis Lamoed and Datus of Shmad? How can you have Kosis Lamoed and all Datus even when there's no Kosis? This is the kasha that this morning's parakim begin with. So the Rebbe said the teretz to the kasha requires Akdam. We mentioned before that Yidna Maminim ne Maminim. Yeah? And they're different than Goyim. The Emunah Ba'Yid doesn't come from Seichel. The Emunah Ba'Yid comes taka from the Neshama itself. However, when you say that Yidna Maminim ne Maminim, in other words, the Emunah doesn't have to come through Seichel. It comes straight from the Neshama. There's also 2 different Biyurim. One Biyur is that Mazla Chazi. The Yid has a level called Mazel, which later on in the Maimon in the Order 56, he calls Chaya. Chaya. That means the subconscious higher than the Seichel, Zraya Lakus, and Caesar Lakus. And because the Mazel, which is higher than the Seichel, Caesar Lakus, so the conscious person is a Maimon. In other words, your Pnimi sees, so your Chitonius believes. That's the first Hasbara. Then there's another Hasbara, that the Yid is a Maimon ben Maimon because his Etzem HaNeshama is one with the Eibishter. Right? It's not the Pshat that he sees the Eibishter and if he believes in the Eibishter. No. He's a shtik Eibishter. The Etzem HaNeshama is Chadem HaAtzmos. It's one with the Atzmos. It's called the Diskashos Atzmos. There's no Siba. The Madrega of Mazel sees. Right? You're here. The Eibishter is there. The Mazel sees. It's like as if you have 3 people. The Eibishter, the Mazel that sees, and the you that believes. The Mazel tells you, hey, I can see the Eibishter, so you believe. That's called a Siba. On the Madrega of Etzem HaNeshama, which is his Kashas Atomos, it's not the Pshat you see a Lakus and differ your Maimon in a Lakus. You're one with a Lakus, so you better have a Mun. And the Rebbe says, what's the difference? What's the difference if a person's Amunah comes from the Madrega of Mazle Chazi, or the person's Amunah comes from this Kashas Atomos? I want you to know that the Rebbe, throughout this Maimon, is going to call the Amunah of Mazle Chazi, the Madrega of Mazle Chazi, the Rebbe is going to call it mipnei siba. Emunah with a cause. I believe because of something. And in some places, he's actually going to call it emunah mitzad giluyim. He's going to call it the emunah from the lower level. The emunah mitzad mazla chazah. The emunah that comes from chaya. The Rebbe is going to call it mipnei siba. There's a cause. He's going to call it mitzad giluyim. The emunah mitzad yechida is I'm one with the Eibishter. What's the difference between these two emunahs? The pashtazav. That means if you have emunah mipnei siba, if you believe in the Eibishter because your subconscious is the Eibishter, so that emunah is taka strong. Because the is a gavaldik zach, right? The is a very, very high union. But nevertheless, the is higher than you don't experience. You don't see the Eibishter. Your neshama sees the Eibishter. You consciously believe what your neshama sees. Says the Rebbe, it's possible that the Amunah should be makif. In other words, I believe in the Eibishter, but I don't believe in the Eibishter enough that I should live where the Eibishter wants me to live. In order for my Amunah to be in such a way that the Amunah should be mislabish bepnimius in the guf. In other words, that because I believe in the Eibishter, I do what the Eibishter wants. For this, you have to have Amunah, what's called the kashus atzm is the etzem haneshama. So, in other words, if you have Amunah for the Madrega of Chaya, you believe in the Eibishter, you won't do anything about it. Makif. But if you have Amunah from the Madrega of Yechida, then you can have Amunah and you're actually going to do something about it. Why? Because the etzem haneshama is the etzem of the whole neshama. Etzem haneshama is not another Madrega. Etzem haneshama is the etzem of the whole neshama, including the etzem of the neshama hamelubeshes beguf. So the Amunah mitzad Yechida is the etzem of my consciousness, of what I know. And therefore the Rebbe says, when I have Amunah mitzad etzem haneshama, it's nimshach bepnimius, right? Bekitzer, what did we just say? That Amunah mitzad chaya, mitzad mazel, is called mipnei siba, it's called mitzad hagiluyim, it's called makif. I believe in the Eibishter, but I don't do anything about it. Amunah mitzad yechida, since the yechida is the etzem of the keiches hagiluyim, also it's nimshach bepnimius. So the Rebbe says, now you understand the teres to the kasha. The kasha is, we say, it's pashtus the meisha b'chol dara v'dara, and right after that we say kosas lamoyer. Says the Rebbe, you have to make a separation. If you look at the Pnin, the Rebbe puts the word kosas in parentheses. He says not, I'm putting words into the Maimer for Hezbet. Not every Rebbe has kosas lamoyer, but every Rebbe has moyer. That's the teretz. The kasha was, it's pashtus the meisha b'chol dara v'dara. Not in every day, just kosas lamoyer. And the teretz is, kosas you don't have in every dar, but more you have in every dar. Why? Because what's the union of a Rebbe? Because the union of Moshe Rabbeinu, that he's Zonah Mefarat Yisrael B'Yin Amunah is, that he's Megala, the Amunah to the Etzem HaNeshama, which is higher than the Amunah from the Madrega of Mas, Mo'er Shalomayla B'Yer. And by the Rebbe being Megala in the Yid, the Amunah Mitzad Yechida, which is higher than the Amunah Mitzad Mazel, he's poiled that the Amunah should be B'Ptimius. And it's Takenat Kosis. It's only Mo'er. And in those generations, when you have kosis, in other words, in the times of Golus, then you have an extra mile. What is the extra mile? That the ikir gilu yetzem haneshama, to reveal the yechida, moed, is through Mesiras Menagos. In other words, there's two inyanim. The teres to the kasha of the smuchin of ispashtusa demesha b'chol dora v'dora and kosis la moed is to separate kosis from moed. Every Rebbe is moed. And every Rebbe's moed means he's megala and mudu mitzad yechida. But every Rebbe is not kosas lamor. What's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is whether you're megala the yechida itself or not. Okay, and the Rebbe explains this in Perek Vav. He says there's a concept of Mesiras Nefesh, right? Concept of Mesiras Nefesh. If you're to be Mesa Nefesh, it's going to have to be a munah that comes from the yechida sheba nefesh. Why? Because if a person has a munah from the reg of chaya, Mazle Chazi, it's a very powerful thing. Mazle Chazi, the neshama sees is very strong. Like it says all over Chassidus, that the Re'iyah is a very strong Esamtus. When you see something, it's very, very strong. But the bottom line is, if you believe in the Eibishter because you see him, it's called Mipnei Siba. And if you believe in the Eibishter Mipnei Siba, it doesn't touch your etzem. And if you believe in the Eibishter Mipnei Siba and it doesn't touch your etzem, you won't necessarily be Mesa Nefesh. To give away your life for the Eibishter, your Emunah can't be without Siba. It has to believe Siba. So Take Emunah Mitzad Mazel is very strong. But in order for the Emunah to bring a person to Mesiras Nefesh B'Peil, the Emunah has to come dafka from Yechidah Shabbat Nefesh. Because Madrega V'Yechidah Shabbat Nefesh, this is not Mesiba, this is you. And E.F. Sher Lichber, you can't possibly deny. So the Rebbe says, when you're talking about Mesiras Nefesh, there's an Ian of Gilui of Yechidah, and when there's a Gilui of Yechidah, a person is Mesiras Nefesh. Okay? But that's in terms of Mesiras Nefesh, that's in terms of Kasas Lamoy. But in terms of Moed, in other words, that the Yiddish Emunah shouldn't be only from the Madrega of Mazel, but should be from the Madrega of Etzem. This is in every generation. And the Rebbe says, now we understand. Moshe Rabbeinu was a Rebbe, and he was on Umefanas Yisrael B'nyan Emunah. And it's not just true of Moshe Rabbeinu, it's true of this Pashtusa de Moshe, Shebechol Dara V'Dara, that the Mechazik B'nyan Emunah. So he says like this: when you have a circumstance where you have to have Mesiras Nefesh, so then obviously the Rebbe's made them Mesiras Nefesh. But when you don't have Mesiras Nefesh, for example, in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu was a Rebbe. And Moshe Rabbeinu had to be made the Emunah of Yidden. How did it express itself in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu? That he was giving das to the Jewish people. So the Emunah should be b'pnimis, right? Yidden by themselves, the Emunah is back. Moshe gave them should be das. And l'cha'oira, that's bestire to Kosas Lamoy. In other words, the idea that Moshe Rabbeinu gave das is not the same thing as the day of Kosas Lamoy. Says the Rebbe, the teretz is a posheta. Now Rabbi say, here comes the third quote from this Maimon that you got to remember. Okay, I'm sorry that I'm teaching as I'm chazering. Yeah, the first quote is Mekasher u'mechaber es Yisrael u'merin sof. The second quote is Zon u'mefanes es Yisrael b'nyan emunah. What's the third quote? The third quote is that Moshe Rabbeinu has two tasks, not one, two. They're called Iker Inyanai Mehemna and Teitzoas Inyanai Mehemna. Iker Inyanai Mehemna is called Zonu Mefanes Esho Emuna Atzma. He changes the lashon. Not Zonu Mefanes Es Yisrael B'nyan Emuna, but Zonu Mefanes Esho Emuna Atzma. Iker Inyanai Mehemna is his Mefanes the Emuna. What does that mean? That the Emuna shouldn't be from Chaya, which is Makiv. It should be from Yechidah, which is Etzem. Iker Inyan of Raya Mehemna is that the Emunah shouldn't be what the Rebbe calls there, not just from the Giluyim, that the Neshama Shalamayla is Raya Lakus, but it should be from Etzem. Teitzos Inyan Raya Mehemna is that he's on Mefanas the Emunah, that the Emunah should be not just Mitzad Giluyim, but the Emunah should be Mitzad Etzem. So in the day of Moshe Rabbeinu, it was the Mamshech Das, that he was mechazek the Emunah from the Madrega of Yechidah. That it should be nimshach into Chaya, that the Emunah should have a certain strength. But when it comes to the Gilui of the Yechidah itself, there's a difference between one dot and another. And only in those days where you had the Inyan of Mesiras Nefesh and the Rabbeim, the Reyes, Aspashtusa, the Meishu, and the Inyan of Mesiras Nefesh, so the Rebbe says, in this Inyan, there was a greater gili of the Inyan of Raya Mehemne than there was even by Moshe Rabbeinu. Because in times of Mesiras Nefesh, the Yechida Etzem and Neshama itself is Behiz Galus. And this idea that the Etzem and Neshama is Behiz Galus in times of Mesiras Nefesh is even more than was by Moshe Rabbeinu. So the Rebbe said this. He said, the teretz to our kasha about this Pashtusa the Moshe and Kosas Lamoyer is that every Rebbe has a shaykhis to Moyer. Not every Rebbe has a shaykhis to Kosas Lamoyer. What's the type of Moyer? That the Emunah shouldn't only be mitzad Chaya, which could be Makiv. It should be mitzad Etzem, which is Pnimiyas. Because Iker in Yerai Mehemne, Zon Mefanas Emunah Atzma. Teitzos in Yerai Mehemne, every generation is different. The way I understand it is, in every Dar, every Rebbe does the same thing. He connects Yechidah with Chaya. In every Dar, every Rebbe does something different. He leads his generation based on what the generation needs. So by Moshe Rabbeinu it was Das. And by Mordechai it was Mesiras Nefesh. And the Rebbe says that in those days with the Mesiras Nefesh is a certain Maile. Because not only are you touching the Yechidah, that the Chaya should be Bepnimius, you magal the Yechidah itself. And this is a good teretz to the Kasha. Is Kosas Lamor certain datas, or Kosas Lamor all datas? And the teretz is Mo'ed is all datas. Kosas Lamor, that the Yechid itself should be Beis Galus, is not all datas. So now we understand the Seder of the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimon. V'yata Tetzav is point 1. is Pashtusa the Mesha B'chol Dara V'Dara is 0.2, and Kosis Lamoid is 0.3. And then the Rebbe continues. If you know the history, you know that the time when all Yidden were Mason Nefesh prepared for Yiddishkeit was in the time of Purim and the Gezeit of Ham. Because in the time of Chanukah and the Gezeit of Yovan, it was only Matas Yobanov. Mashenk and the Gezeit of Ham affected all the Jewish people. Says the Rebbe, this adds another Havana in another Prat in the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer. Because the Rebbe brings the Medrash, the Friedrich Rebbe brings the Medrash, Mordechai B'Deirei, K'Moshe B'Deirei. Why does he bring Dafka Mordechai B'Deirei? L'cheireh is Pashtusa the Mesha. Is B'chol Dara V'Dara. Why does he Dafka bring Mordechai B'Deirei, Shach K'Moshe B'Deirei? So the Rebbe says like this. There's another Inyan. And what is that? That only some Rabbeim were the Raya Mehem the Begilui shall call Yisrael Shabbatei. Every Rebbe is a Rebbe of the whole Dor, but not Begilui. Some Rebbes have a distinction that the Raya Mehem the Begilui of Kol Yisrael Shabbatei. Moshe Rabbeinu was the Raya Mehem the Begilui of his whole Dor in Inyan Adas, and Mordechai was the Raya Mehem the Begilui of his whole Dor in Inyan Mesiras Nefesh. So the reason the Friedrich Rebbe is medactic, Mordechai B'Deirei, Shokol, K'Moshe, is because they have something which also you don't have by all Rebbes. To be the Nasi, to be the Rayim Nehem Begillah shall call Yisrael, not every Rebbe was there. And then the Rebbe says that since the Friedrich Rebbe brings this Medrash, that Mordechai B'Deirei, Shokol, K'Moshe B'Deirei, he says the Rebbe was paskening about himself. That the Friedrich Rebbe also was in that rare category. Rebbe felt 2 Minuten. Ich endig bald. Ich ga ze prokke me hei bis gas. Und ich endig. Mamisch at gemenut. Entschuldigt. That the Friedrich Rebbe also was the Nasi Yisrael begoloi of Kol Yisrael Shabbat. And on the footnote, the Rebbe brings the famous word from Baal Shem Tov that Nefroim and Ha'adam Midaitei, Din v'cheshbon Midaitei, the Friedrich Rebbe may not even realize, but because he quoted this particular medrash about Mordechai B'Deirei, Shachar K'Moshe B'Deirei, he was paskening about himself that he was the Rebbe the Nasi of Kol Adei Kul. And then the Rebbe finishes. Now the Maimon works. In other words, Perek Ches, he summarizes. The Rebbe sort of makes a kitzur of the Maimon until this point. We start off with the pasuk of Vayat at the Tzavat B'nei Yisrael that Moshe Rabbeinu's Inyan is Makasher and Mechabes Olam Ein Sof. How is he Makasher and Mechabes Olam Ein Sof? Through this that he's Zonu Mefanes. And then he right away says, it is not just true of Moshe Rabbeinu Agash, but there's this Pashtus of the Moshe B'chol, daughter, and every single generation there's a Rebbe Nasi whose Inyan is to strengthen the Emunah of Yid. And then he gives the example from Mordechai that he was Mechazik the Emunah through the Yinam Mesiras Nefesh, Lamed Chazer with Yim Teidul Mitzvahs, and then the next thing right away is Kosis Lamoy. What's the connection? That V'at HaTetzaveh, even though it's speaking about Moshe Rabbeinu Hagashmi, and in his times there was no Inyan of Kosis Lamoy, but Moir there is, because Moshe Rabbeinu was Magal the Moir in Yidden, the Etzem HaNeshama, that even though the true Inyan of Kosis Lamoy, the complete Inyan of Kosis Lamoy, is his Pashtusa de Leibes Man HaGolos, when you there's the Ikegili of Etzem HaNeshama, but that's only, there's a Yisrael in the even Kosis Lamoy. But every Rebbe has a Shaykhis to Moir, because the whole Inyan of a Rebbe is the Emunah should be Bepnimius, and there's the Emunah comes from Yechid. This is the end of 2/3 of the Maimer. But then comes the third of the Maimer. How do you go from part B to part C? Kashis, weiter Akash. Rebbe Kash. According to what we just explained, we understand the connection between the words V'at HaTetzaveh B'nei Yisrael to his Pashtusa de Moshe B'chol Dara V'Dara and Inyan of Kosis Lamoy. It all stims. What's the problem? Right in the middle, you have the words V'yikhu Elecha Shem Ezayizach. V'at HaTetzaveh B'nei Yisrael. After that, it doesn't say Kosis Lamoy. It says V'yikhu Elecha Shem Ezayizach. And the Taich V'yikhu Elecha Shem Ezayizach is that when Yisrael Meviim Shemen LeMoshe means that Yisrael are Meisifim Teisves Er B'Moshe, like I said in Perek Beis. And the Rebbe says, I don't understand. If we explain V'at HaTetzaveh B'nei Yisrael Kosis Lamoy, it goes on the Aved of Moshe Rabbeinu. And V'yikhu Elecha is the Teisves Er B'Moshe. In other words, it's Char of Moshe Rabbeinu. How come V'yikhu Elecha is in the middle? You should put it at the end. V'at HaTetzaveh B'nei Yisrael Kosis Lamoy, and then say V'yikhu Elecha Shem Ezayizach. This kasha opens up the last third of the Maimer. This kasha, how come the word Vichu Elecha Shemen Zayezach, which is Klayachol Moshe Rabbeinu Schar, Kaviyata Tetzav, the fact that these words are put in the middle, this kasha opens up the third Maimer is predicated in this one kasha. In other words, I'm going to stop right now. Just say this: every B'chlal Teira and every Maimer is based on kashas. In this Maimer, there's 3 sets of kashas. There's kashas in Perek Aleph. There's a kasha on the end of Perek Gimel, which is repeated again at the end of Perek Dalet, which opens up the next few prakim, Hey Vav. And at the end of Perek Ches, Rebbe asks again a kasha. And this kasha is the opening to the last third of the Maimer, which is the big arichas in the Maimer. Why Vichu Elecha Shemen Zayezach is in between the words Ba'at Tetzav B'nei Yisrael and Kosas Lamor. Okay, I'm going to try my best to come on at 3:30. That's what we made up, yeah? 3 Chevre mit 3, halb noch 3. Mit Chazen der Mann in Chelik. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Rabbi says, man Kirishme.
Ja, gemaakt heb je zo. Je maakt je